to my pages. Abhinav's not joining today, but he'll be able to join from the next class onwards. Okay, so sorry about last class. We had to cancel last minute. The good news for that is that our friend finally managed to get the tickets done. I think it took us almost time till evening to get it done, but he's flying out tomorrow. So if everything goes right, there are still so many ifs and buts around it, but we'll see. So hopefully everything works out. Okay, so coming back to today's class. So in last class, we had reminded ourselves what meditation is and what meditation is not, right? And we also learned, we started to get into the space of meditation. So we learned how to prepare the seat and place for the Dhyan Yoga. And finally, we covered a little bit about, we understood a little bit about what asana siddhi means. Why is it important? What are the three different forms in which we can seat ourselves to be able to focus better, okay? So now we'll start from Shloka 15. Visalakshmi, would you like to read with us? She's not there, maybe. Who wants to go? Oh, wow. Good to see you, Rishabh.
I can go, Tuhina.
Okay, please. Connection for Shloka 15.
The result of the practice of Dhyana Yoga is described thus.
Yunjan nevam sadatmanam.
Yunjam neva sada atman.
Sadatmanam.
Sadatmanam.
Yogi niyata manasaha.
Yogi niyata manasaha.
Shantim nirvana paramam.
Shanti nirvana paraman.
Matsamstham adhigacchati.
Matsamstham gachati.
Gachati. There's no halat again, right?
Gachati.
Yunjan neva. Yunjan is be absorbed. Evam, like this. Sada is always. Atmanam, self, the capital S self. Yogi is yogi. Niyata manasaha, one who has controlled or disciplined his mind. Manas. Shantim is peace. Nirvana paramam is ultimate liberation. Matsam stham is residing in me. Sthanam in me, matsa. So residing in me. Adhi gachati, attains to.
The yogi of disciplined mind, thus absorbed in my thoughts, attains to the consummate peace of the bliss culminating in total liberation. The bliss of liberation by disciplining the mind. In this shloka, there is full emphasis on controlling the mind. A turbulent mind is not fit for meditation.
So I wanted to spend a little bit time on understanding this and why this is important and how we experience it on a daily basis. So first of all, when we start this, what we will realize is mind is movable. We always think of mind as turbulent, mind as something that is constantly diverted, right? So, and how does that really work, right? I had given a small understanding of this initially in one of the classes. So you sit down, you decide, okay, I want to sit down to meditate, right? And you switch off everything, you sit down in this perfect place that you've got for yourself. And as soon as you start meditating and you start getting into the zone, you hear your phone buzz, ping, something happens, right? And you've decided that you're not going to let anything, get into the way of your meditation. So you're going to say, I'm not going to take that. And I'm going to, like, whatever it is, it's going to wait, right? A few moments pass, and then there's a voice in your head that goes, are you sure? This could be important. Do you want to take a quick look? And then you go back like, nope, whatever it is, they can wait. So the little voice goes back again. I admire your persistence, but let's face it, you're not going to be a Buddha in one day. So might as well just go and take a quick look, right? You know there are so many things. What if your boss is pinging you? What if you don't know, like whatever, your mind keeps talking to you about that, right? So you say, nope, I'm meditating. So your voice goes, okay, I like it. Good, go for it. And then you're sitting down, you're meditating. But now at the back of your mind, that phone and ping is already there. After some time, your mind goes, hey, do you remember? You did not really revert back to your team members on that particular proposal, did you? And then you go like, I'm meditating. No, don't disturb me. I'm meditating, right? You're going back to it's like, I have to meditate. So after some time, this guy goes, your little voice goes again. You know, we are not going to win that proposal if you don't put it in by today. Do you know everybody else is going in for it? Do you know how much pressure is there on that proposal? And then your mind again goes like, go away. No, I'm meditating. I have to meditate. And that's a very typical conversation that goes on, right? And so you're telling your little voice to go away, which doesn't go away. It keeps coming back. But by now, any enthusiasm you had for meditation is kind of like beginning to ebb away, because there's a growing amount of restlessness that has started to come in. And then the little voice comes back yet again, and it goes like, something like, oh my gosh, like that customer is definitely not going to sign on the way you're going about it, and do you know how everybody else is going to pounce on you, and your bonus is definitely not going to happen? Do you remember how that guy sabotaged you last time, what all he said to your boss? And then how many times I have told these tech guys to come and help me out, and they always screw up the demo. So something is going to happen, and after a point you go like, like the little voice goes like, I tell you what, we'll worry about this meditation thing later on. Let's go and get that work done. That is typically how a lot of our meditation sessions start to go. Okay. So the truth is, the moment you have started answering that little voice in your head, you have already lost the battle. So the little voice starts to speak. The moment you're answering it back, the moment you're acknowledging it and answering it back, is the moment you've lost the battle already. Your meditation is over in that moment. Anything after that it's only a matter of time as to when you will get up and abandon the meditation. All right. So the first time you say, no, go away, I'm meditating, is already the battle has been lost. Now it's a matter of time. So our mind, you will realize, is constantly talking. We're just not aware of it. We're just not aware how talkative this mind is. We become aware of it only when we sit down to really quieten ourselves down. That's when we realize the cacophony going on inside of us. But this is a constant state. Now, the important thing here is that mind is not turbulent. Mind is not talkative. What has happened is mind is movable. It is not restless. It is similar to a cycle. Cycle is movable, but cycle is not turbulent. Cycle is not constantly in movement. Cycle comes into movement when we apply certain pressure or some energy to it. If we do not do that, it stays still. Mind is exactly like that. So mind is movable is a great thing, because if it was not movable, whatever it has grasped on for the first time without us understanding or knowing it, that is where it will stay. There is no hope after that. The fact that it is movable is what gives us hope. Don't care where it has been or what it has been holding on to. Because it is movable, I can change its direction. I can turn it to whatever else I want it to. So that's the good news. Why is it then that it appears so restless? It is because of years of conditioning. And that has caused it, that constant energy that we provide it without even knowing, without being aware of it, which causes it to run after things and constantly talk. So it's only a matter of habit that it has become, or we experience it this way. We can quieten it down. So when we start to quieten our mind down. It is not just about experiencing a deep quietude, which we have otherwise never experienced before. We don't even know what that feels like to have that deep quietude. So you will definitely experience that. But meditation is not just about that. What happens when you get to that quietude is one of the most radical changes you will experience in yourself, in how you interact with the VVGP around you. And that change is going to be that nothing will provoke you. Your own thoughts, other people's actions, their thoughts, what they say to you, what happens outside of you, nothing will provoke you. What happens is that we get provoked. We are constantly getting provoked into action, constantly getting provoked into saying something, doing something, in ways sometimes that we are ourselves ashamed of it. Like we think back and say, my gosh, like that wasn't me at all. That was really just not what I'm proud of, right? So we're constantly getting provoked into behaviors. With meditation, we'll start to realize that nothing will provoke us because our mind has quietened down. And so there is this space for us to consider whether something is even worth doing something about. Or is it just one of those little waves that is just going to pass by without us? Like we just watch and let it go. And then there are other moments where you'll be like, no, I need to act on this. So you will act and not react. That is one of the most radical things that will happen to you and will manifest in how you will interact with the VVGP, which means that it will strengthen our karma yoga, right? So all of this becomes a virtuous cycle with each other. Another thing that you will experience is that you will actually become a lot more spontaneous, pretty much like a child, without losing your spontaneity. You'll constantly be spontaneous, but you will be mindful. You will know. So mindfulness would be stuff like, you walk into somebody's house and it's been raining, so you're carrying an umbrella. You leave an umbrella somewhere. You walk inside, and if I ask you, where did you keep your umbrella? There are very few people who will be mindful enough for that little small thing that they did, that they'll be able to tell you exactly where they kept the umbrella. Did you keep it beside your shoes? Did you keep it on left side of the door? Did you keep it on right side of the door? That mindfulness is simply not there because your mind is constantly racing somewhere else and you're doing actions, right? That level of mindfulness of you being completely aware of what you are doing and being able to process everything in your environment in a very heightened manner will happen, which will improve your capacity to function in a very highly efficient manner in this world. Okay. Now, how does that really happen? So the movement of the mind from the space where we are today to the space of quietude happens in 4 stages. And these 4 stages are experienced by every single person who starts out on this journey. Every single person. There is no escape from these 4 stages. So to explain, we'll use an example of us driving out. Okay. We stay in a metropolitan city and we decide to go to a really far off, remote, quiet place by the seaside. It's very, very far off. This will involve us driving long distance in our car to that place. Okay. Now, so you start off on your journey. When you first start off, you will get into a highway. On a highway, there is constant activity. The cars are coming towards you. The cars are passing you by on both sides of the directions, and it's with so much of speed. There's just too much going on around you at all points of time. But you are on highway. This is expected. So you have to drive very, very carefully. You cannot take your attention away. The moment you take your attention away, you're going to hit something, right? So you are fully engaged and you're constantly looking at at your highway, and you're focused on driving, right? This is the state of our mind when we start meditating. Is constantly you have zero control over the cars that are passing by, right? So you have zero control at this stage over the thoughts that come to you, and they're constantly coming, they're constantly passing by. At this stage, you have to be constantly aware. You cannot take that awareness away. You have to be in that heightened state of awareness to see that they are coming and letting them go. It's very easy to otherwise have an accident, which in our case would mean that you get involved in a conversation that's happening in your head. It comes and you start answering it back, right? So that is the first state. It will happen. You have to go through the stage of constant bombardment of thoughts, and you have zero control over these things. Okay. So this is a very critical stage. And those who do not pay good attention at this stage will never progress to the next stage. You may move, you may attain asana siddhi. So instead of doing this, this is bad meditation, by the way, right? It's like it's a first stage of meditation. So you may transform from doing a bad meditation for 15 minutes, and you may move all the way to 2 hours. But what you were doing a bad meditation for 15 minutes, you will continue to do 2 hours of bad meditation. You'll never move beyond that. Okay, so we have to be very careful. If you are sitting still but you are getting involved in your conversation, then it's not meditation at all. So that's why that basically you just have to learn to let go. Okay, you just have to let the thoughts come, and you have to let the thoughts go. You should involve yourself in those thoughts. That's your job at this stage. Okay, we can't become a bad cook and then stay there, because then it doesn't matter how many dishes you cook, those dishes will always be bad. So you have to learn from every mistake we make and become more and more aware. Then comes the second stage. In the second stage, you will get into one of those, you get off the highway, you get into one of those suburban roads. This is going to be something similar to that. So what the reality of meditation is that most people never cross the first stage. Most people stay in the first stage of meditation. And this is the most difficult stage to cross. And the only way you will cross this first stage is by constancy of action. If you are constant and you move to the second stage, and each of these stages, by the way, are irreversible. It will never happen that you've reached the second stage and then you go back to the first stage. These stages of mind are irreversible. If you put in enough effort, you move to the next stage. It's like learning cycling, right? You learn it, then you don't ever go back to like not learning it. It's a matter of you'll pick up the cycle and within like a few minutes you'll learn, right? Like swimming. So it's something similar to that, right? So you get into the second phase where the flow of thoughts is still frequent, pretty frequent, but it is not constant. In the first stage, it's constant, it doesn't stop. What you will start to experience in the second stage is that you will have a few seconds of complete quietude. And then again, the ballad starts. But you'll start to get glimpses of quietude, even if it's just for a few seconds, So that starts to happen. You will also experience that if in the first stage you could only manage, say, 30 minutes, you will start to get to 45 minutes to 60 minutes of meditation in the second stage without getting too restless. So you in this stage, what happens is that you are now becoming a lot more aware of the thoughts that are coming into your mind. They are constantly knocking at your door, but you have somewhat control over deciding who to pick up, right? So it's not no control any longer. It's like now you actually have a device which does not get off the hook by itself. There is a phone. You decide whether you want to answer the incoming call or not. That's the level of control you start to develop. Okay. Now, in the next stage, so once you get past this stage, right, when you go to the third stage, it is like going into a countryside road. Okay, so much lesser activity, and there is a lot more of mental stillness at this stage. So at this stage, you will start to experience that there is a lot of stuff going on around you, but it is not affecting you any longer. You're beginning to reach that stage of quietude where stuff is not provoking you any longer as it used to before. And what is important to understand is that there are very, 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 very few people who get to this third stage. And it is not because they are not they're not putting in the effort. They might be putting in 2 hours of effort. It's because their technique is wrong, or they are not being aware of the right thing. That is why it is important for us to be very aware when we are doing meditation and do it correctly with the right set of people. And I'm not the right person at all, because I'm myself learning. So we need to find the right guru to teach us proper meditation, right? So that's very, very important. So here in this space, you will actually have long periods of meditation where things will not come and disturb you. Your thoughts really, really, really go down to a very low degree. Okay. And this kind of a person who's reached this stage learns to harness, learns to channelize his thoughts in a very, very strong, in a very efficient, in a very effective manner. They will have long periods of time with they experience bliss, and there are very occasional thoughts that will come here and there. They will emerge, but they've learned by now not to get involved in any of those thoughts, right? So when you get up from your meditation at this stage, you're supercharged. Okay, in the very first stage, when you finish meditation, there are two different ways in which you'll get up. Either you'll get up exhausted, your entire body is aching, here you're aching, there you're aching, or you're generally upset or exhausted by the thoughts that have come into your head, depending on what you have experienced in that session. Okay, you may get up irritated, you may get up upset, you may get up like, oh my gosh, like I don't have time for this and that and blah blah, right? You can literally get up in that space as well. Or if you experience happy thoughts, calming thoughts during that session, you'll get up feeling, you'll have that feeling of like, oh, I'm energized and I'm happy, but actually that's nothing more than a nap. Same as nap. You go take a nap, you'd feel a little bit more refreshed. It's similar to that. It's not really bliss that you will start to experience that difference in the second stage and third stage. So that is the kind of level of mindfulness that we need to develop through meditation. Okay. So that is what the Shloka 15 is talking about. And of course, the fourth stage is ultimate, right? So very similar to this entire experience of meditation is going to be similar to churning butter or ghee out of water. Once you have churned milk and you've gotten to a stage of butter or to buttermilk, and from there you have gotten to ghee. Once you've gone through that phase, it is irreversible. You cannot get milk out of the ghee again. So that is why these stages of meditation are also irreversible in nature. Okay. We'll move on from here. Go to Shloka 16.
I read, I continue, or what?
Well, let's have someone else do the same at the time.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to volunteer?
I will.
Yeah, please.
Take the connection.
Mm-hmm.
For an aspirant of Dhyan Yoga, it is necessary to be of sound health. For this, certain simple rules are laid down.
Natya shantastu yogo asti.
Natya shantastu yogo asti.
It's not full sh, it's half sh. Okay. So Natya shnatastu yogo asti.
Natya shnatastu yogo asti.
Very nice. Na chaikantam anashnataha.
Na chaikantam anashnataha.
Nice. Na chati swapnashilasya.
Na chati swapnashilasya.
Jagrato naiva charjuna.
Jagrato neva charjuna.
So I insist on changing and checking and improving the diction here, because as our tongue learns to roll, we learn to read, and this practice will improve, as we go through the entire 800 700 shlokas, we'll learn to get better at saying these, right? So our the way we'll say things will get much better. Better to go slow initially rather than do it fast but do it wrong.
Right.
So Natya shnatastu is one who does not eat too much. Okay. Yogo asti is one who's in yog. Na chaikantam anashnataha. Cha is and. Ekant, ekantam is bilkul, at all. And anashnataha, who does not eat. Basically, who does not eat at all. Na chati swapnashilasya, one who does not sleep at all. One who sleeps too much. Chati swapnashilasya. So one who sleeps too much. Jagrato is one who does not sleep at all. So Jagrato naiva. That put together is who does not sleep at all. So here we are going to be discussing how important it is for us to follow a path of moderation in anything and everything we do. We've heard of the path of moderation, the Eightfold Path of Moderation in Buddhism as well. It is built around that. So here also we learned that for us to do Dhyan Yoga, it is very important to stay in moderation for everything. Unfortunately, in this world that we live, moderation is something that is not celebrated at all. A lot of time, moderation is equated to mediocrity. It's very important to be able to distinguish between the two. You're not asked to be a mediocre. You're being asked to be moderate. Okay, very big difference. But in the world today, it's a world of extremes. So you have to be an extreme of some kind to get noticed, whether it is good or bad. So people trying to go to an extreme to build up their bodies or to do mental activities or whatever, like whatever you're doing, you will see that, anything at an extreme with all these people around, we are constantly trying to get ourselves noticed. And that's why people go on extremes. An example of that extreme would be Guinness Book of World Records, right? Guinness Book of World Records, all we do is capture extremes. And yeah, people do it out of this whole sense of like, we'll get noticed because this is the only path I know to do something or to get noticed or to get fame. But these are the type of activities, the karma, that are typically very disillusioned work that you will do. There is no, what is the, why are you trying to do something is very important. And I'm not saying, oh, everybody in Guinness Book of World Record is like that. I'm just saying there are certain things that are obviously quite silly. And I don't know why one would do that. But so you always have to go back to the intention. And we always have to look at that we are not going on an extreme of work, an extreme of sleep, an extreme of entertainment. So when we'll play like when we watch TV, we'll do binge watching. Entire weekend, all we're doing is binge watch. Like, let's finish one entire season. Or and after that, like no watching TV for like so many months. Or like we're going out drinking, now we're going to drink entire night and come back in the morning. That we've all done that. We've all been on some extreme or the other in some form or the other, right? And then go the other extreme, eat a lot and then not eat at all because now I have to make up for the calories I've eaten, right? We've all done various versions of extremes, and what we are going to learn here is extreme is something that we need to avoid, and learn to be moderate in our life is the most difficult thing to do. And I'm a prime example of that. Last 2-3 years, all I've been doing is trying to focus on being moderate. I go on extreme very, very quickly because I have this drive, and a lot of women have this drive of being perfectionist, right? We've been born and we've been brought up in an environment where the expectations from women in general are much higher than the expectations that are set with men. And so we have this drive to be superwomen in terms of how we manage our houses, how we manage our relationships, how we manage our office work, and all of that expectation is constantly building up. So we're always trying to go on extremes of trying to perfect everything in our lives. Okay. So we need to learn. I'm learning very, very, like I've been working on this for 3 years myself on how to be moderate. Let's read.
This yoga is beyond the reach of one who eats too much or one who does not eat at all, or for one who sleeps too much or who does not sleep at all. Excessive eating, fasting, sleeping, or keeping awake, hindrances in yoga. 4 points are emphasized in this shloka. An aspirant Dhyan Yoga should not fast too much. By excessive fasting, the vitality and functioning of the mind and the senses are weakened. In such a condition, there may be a feeling of the senses being apparently under effective control, but in fact, this is not an index of control over them. It indicates their weakening. The objective is to have a strong mind, strong senses, and strong vitality, but all in strict control. To weaken them is not conducive to meditation.
I have done stuff like this, right? Go from a point of like, I've never fasted all my life, or like one fast once in a while, or like one fast in like, or two fasts in like a year, to like, oh, suddenly I'm going to do both Ekadashis. I'm going to do the Shivratris also. I will do Monday fast also. I've gone to that level, like two very quickly going to 4 fasts a month to like 6 fasts a month, and then petering out very, very quickly. 6 months, 3 months, and after that, back to square one. And then having 3-4 months of like zero fasting completely, and then starting all over again. So that's how extremes work. They will exhaust you, they will peter you out, and they will stop. So I have learned through my practice of moderation that constancy is more important than the amount that you do. Similarly, exercise. No exercise forever. Now I'm going to start exercising. It has to be 5 kilometers a run. Anything less than 5 kilometers is nonsense. Then it's not, I'm not exercising. So instead of that, last year I started like, no, 3 kilometers, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of run. That's all that I need. That's all I can afford with my lifestyle, with my time, with the time that I have. But doing it like 4, 5, 6 times a week, that's all that I care about. Now, so those are small examples I'm sharing from my life on where I have seen that I very easily go over the board and then realize, oh yeah, totally gone over the board, and how it has completely failed me, and I have to come back and start from square one. Yeah. Let's go ahead.
Such an aspirant should also not eat too much, which may lead to a feeling of heaviness and result in drowsiness. This may give an illusion of absorption in meditation. On the contrary, it is the depth of slumber. In meditation, the senses are superactive and superconscious. Similarly, the aspirant should be careful to get adequate and restful sleep. This would be conducive to freshness and physical smartness. Also, the aspirant should not sleep too much, since it may induce laziness, which may obfuscate the mind.
All very self-explanatory. So we'll move on.
The Lord now describes the benefits of maintaining a balance in all these things.
So who wants to go next?
I will.
Yuktahara viharasya
Yuktaharviharasya
yuktacheshtasya karmasu
Yuktacheshasya karmasu
yuktaswapnavabodhasya
Yuktasvapnavabodhasya
yogo bhavati dukkha.
Yogo bhavati dukkaha.
Yuktahara viharasya. So yukt is when you are moderate and hence connected through it. Ahar, the eating, and vihar is recreation. So moderate in eating and recreation. Yukta cheshtasya karmasu, connected or moderate in exertion for work, an exertion for karma. Yukta swapnava bodhasya is connected and moderate and hence connected through sleep and through keeping awake. Swapna and bodh, keeping awake and sleeping. And such a person who is in yoga like this, he puts an end to all his dukh, end to all the sufferings.
The yoga puts an end to all the sufferings of one who is moderate in eating and recreation, moderate in exertion for his work, moderate in sleep and keeping awake. Balance in eating, recreation, work, sleep, and keeping awake, essential for a yogi. An aspirant is able to reach perfection in yoga easily if right balance is maintained in matters involving eating, recreation, working, sleeping, and keeping awake. It is necessary to keep in mind that meditation is not the result of any painstaking or back-breaking effort. It is a natural and easy state of one's real internal being, in the attainment of which all the tensions should be avoided from the initial stages. It has been observed that some aspirant practicing meditation knit their eyebrows and have facial contortions. This is wrong. The supreme being is extremely lovable, and his contemplation should be an extremely pleasant experience. The face should be lit up with cheer, and the heart should brim with conviviality. This is how the aspirant described in this shloka puts an end to all his sufferings with the help of this yoga.
So here I mean to give my example, which I still struggle with quite a bit, is so I typically have these really long to-do lists, and I find it very difficult to disconnect from them with all the work that's there. And then I find I get into I've become way better now. I would get into guilt trips when I would not be working on those things. And instead, if I watch 30 minutes of TV, I'll be like, whoa, I'm like wasting time. Or, that sort of stuff would go on with me a lot. So, an extreme in work. So I can be a workaholic, and that's very bad. I have to, and I also realize that I'm burnt out. There are times that I've learned I'm burnt out. I need to work, but my brain is not working, and I'm like, I'm dead. I just can't do. But there is such a long list. People are waiting on me. Blah blah blah. I'll go on with that. And then Abhinav used to always tell me, just chill out, take a break, take 1 hour of break. You'll come back to your this thing, and I wouldn't be able to disconnect. I know it makes sense. I know it would refresh me. Thoda sa aur beta. I know it would refresh me, but I still could not, even knowing that sane advice, I could not disconnect because I would feel guilty for taking rest, for not working. That's been a state of my mind for a while. And then I started to observe and become more aware of what happens when I take a break. I became a lot more aware of the impact it is creating on me, and how after that I'm able to get back to work with so much more gusto, how I'm so much more effective at work. When I started observing myself and I started to experience it, like being fully aware, it's not like I have done that before, but I was just not aware of it. That data points that I collected along the way consciously uh, helped me um, helped me understand how what I'm doing right now is just so antithetical of everything. Me sitting and trying to work at 10 o'clock at night, and I've done that way too many times. 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock, 2 a.m., not sleeping, not working, or not working effectively enough, right? Because I can't sleep because I have to get something done. So instead of 1 hour, I will take 3 hours to get the same thing done, right? I've done that really foolish work. But now I am able to disconnect and say, no, this is the time to disconnect, and that's it. And I'm going to wake up early in the morning and do this thing, but I will not work on it right now because I'm not being effective. So that is another type of moderation that I am still learning and still trying to get better at. Like, so for me, it's like that yukta cheshtasya karmasu is something that is very directly relevant for me. And I've been working on this as well over last few, and I guess recreation as well, because I get guilty at recreating. So, okay. We'll go to the next person.
Yeah, I will go. Yes, thank you.
Next one.
Connection. Now the Lord describes the state of mind of a person who is in the communion with the formless self without attributes.
Yada vinayatam chittam
Yata vinyetam chittam
atmanyevavatishthate
atma meva vashishyate
vavatishthate.
Vatishtate.
Yeah. Atmanyevavatishthate.
Atmneva vashishtate.
Vatishthate.
Vashishtate.
No worries. Nispraha sarva kamebhyo, sorry.
Nispraha, sorry, one more time.
Nispraha sarva kamebhyo
Sharparatarmetyaha
yukta ityuchyate tada.
Yukta Chitate tata.
Yada is when. Viniyatam is perfectly controlled. Chittam is mind. Atmanyeva vatishthate rests in or is connected to nispraha, being free. Sarva kamebhyo, of all desires. Kam is desires. Yukta is connected. Ityuchate is said to be. Tada, in that moment.
When the perfectly control the mind of your person rests in the self alone, then being free from all longings for objects of desire, the aspirant is said to be in communion. The state of the mind of the Dhyana yogi, such a yogi considered no enjoyment of the world as being fit to avail. The enjoyment or not renewed performs, but these enjoyments appear such mean, dry, and meaningless burdens that burdens that the yogi becoming indifferent to them. An ordinary man of the world actually desires a modicum of pleasure in worldly enjoyment. Compared to that, the sense of bliss experienced by a dhyana yogi observed in the self is times greater. This is why the yogi is totally indifferent to those worldly pleasures.
So here I'll give an example of what we've actually experienced, like talked about before. So a person with that kind of a perfectly controlled mind, he becomes free from all longings of objects of desire. What does that really mean is, the word in Hindi, the sentence that is typically used in the other Gita Parivar, I've heard it said a lot of times, चीजें छोड़नी नहीं पड़ती, चीजें छूट जाती हैं. You don't have to leave things, they will leave you. They will go away from your life. The difference is this. It's like breaking a fruit from a tree versus when it is ripe, it falls on its own. When it falls on its own, there is no effort. There is no pain. It's a natural reaction to what's happening. Both the tree and the fruit are ready to let go at that stage. The tree is happy for that burden to have let go, and the fruit is ready to start its own new journey. Right? So it falls on its own. Everything becomes ready. Whereas when you're trying to break it away, when things are not ready, the conditions are not ready, then there is a certain amount of exertion, there's a certain amount of pain involved. As an example in our life, for example, if I, for example, I eat non-veg, I have a lifestyle that involves non-veg, I want to give up non-veg, for whatever reason I want to, I don't have to put an exertion towards like, oh my gosh, like I need to leave non-veg, which means that, next time I go out with my friends and non-veg is ordered, then I'm salivating inside of me and I'm exerting control. Like I don't want to eat, I should not eat because I've taken this vow. But I feel like it, I'm getting tempted to it. This is a state of mind which we read in chapter 2, which is that of a hypocrite. Right? The moment it is there in your mind, the desire is in your mind, you might as well go eat it. Okay, you've lost the battle there itself. Okay, now having said that, there are stages of things, right? You create an intention in your mind that this is the end goal I want to achieve. That intention itself will create conditions around you through which you will evolve slowly at a time, when at some point of time, and you will start to realize that you have lesser and lesser and lesser desire to eat that non-veg. Sometimes you feel like it, you will eat it. At other times you'll be like, no, I don't feel like it, please, like I just don't want to. And slowly the desire will go away. So anything that you crave for today, that you do not want to have that kind of association in future, that will slowly go away with gyan. You will learn about the impact it creates on you mentally, emotionally, physically, and slowly you will start to go away from it. You will naturally evolve to a state where that thing no longer tempts you. that you no longer want it in your life, right? As another example is, for me personally speaking, right? But more generic example first. A more generic example that we hear again and again, which I kind of find very easy to understand, is, a kid. Vedant loves cars, right? Toy cars and all. So you give him toy cars, so excited about it. Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. Slowly, every child will grow out of these toy cars. Every one of us does, right? You grow out of those toys and you start to experience the real life. Once you have driven a real car, that person will never get excited about the small car or a toy car ever again, because now you know what real car feels like, how amazing it is. You suddenly, it isn't as if like you have left the small toy car. You have no desire for it. You no longer want it. It is that level of evolution. You don't feel like you're leaving something. You don't feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm not craving for a promotion, I'm not craving for, like, I'm not working towards more money, I'm not working. All of that will be taken care of, and you will start to realize that you're not even asking for those things, you're not even thinking about those things. So when you go for your new job, you're not thinking in those terms. Will this guy pay me this much? Will I get the right promotion? Will I get the right job title? Your conversation quality will be different in your next job interview. Your job interview will be more about the impact you're trying to create. What value will you bring? How happy you will be, and how much happiness you will create in the place you will go. Rest, everything will take care of itself automatically. It's a byproduct and not what you will crave or think about or be worried about when you're going into that. These are examples of how you, and why? Because you have already experienced how much more amazing it is to operate at that higher level than to operate at the lower level. Then you'll be like, boss, like that stuff, I don't know why I was even worried about. All of that is taken care of. Now let me operate at that higher level, because when at higher level, the lower levels get taken care of. Okay, that's how the thing is. So any feeling of like, oh my gosh, like, will I be leaving stuff behind? No, you won't. And you will evolve. This is, you might, if you're feeling it today about certain things, as you go through this journey, as you evolve, you will start to, like, you won't have to exert any effort to leave them. So don't worry about that. Just focus on the journey and doing the right things. Eventually that transformation is happening, that internal transformation is happening, and it will happen, right? For my personal life, my example would be alcohol. I enjoy my drink 1 or 2 times. I enjoy being in the, in my company of my friends, and I enjoy my drinks. And there's nothing wrong about it, right? Like, I totally enjoy it. Sometimes people would say, oh yeah, and I understand, like, alcohol is not good for health, all of those things. And I'm a very, very, very moderate drinker. But somewhere inside of me, there's always this thing, ultimately, even that one marginal drink is actually bad for my health. It does not bring any value. But when I sit with some of my friends, and I'm not in every condition, but there are certain conditions that are right, I'm very happy drinking, dancing, having fun with my friends, right? And I'm very moderate in that, right? But somewhere in the last 1 year or so, I have started to feel like, no, boss, I want to at some stage go to zero alcohol at some stage. But I'm not there yet. But I feel as if, like, over a period of time, that craving for alcohol has reduced significantly, to a point where I can go to all the networking events in the world, free alcohol flowing. I don't feel like touching it at all. So I've reached that stage where I do not want to. There are only very specific small situations where I feel like drinking in with certain specific conditions, and I still enjoy that. And I know at some stage I will go past that. But in a way that it won't hurt me. I have zero craving. So as long as I have craving, if I'm with my friends and I feel like having a drink, I never stop myself. Like, if I feel like it, I will have it. So that's how the journey will evolve. And I'm just giving examples of my own thing. I'm not passing a judgment on alcohol or meat or whatever. In my own journey, I have reached a stage where I want to get to that stage. Right? Like, so it will happen as and when it will happen. But I've seen the difference in my internal state about these things myself. So the next shloka, who wants to go? Any volunteers? Sanchit.
Connection. Having described the state of mind of a dhyana yogi, the Lord now describes the form of the yogi's mind.
Yatha deepo nivatastho
Yatha Deepo Nivatastho
Ningate sopama smrita
Ningate Sopama Smrita
yogino yatta chittasya
Yogino Yatta Chittasya
yunjato yogamatmanaha.
Yunjato Yogamatmanaha.
Yatha is just like. Deepo is lamp. Nivatastho is a place that is free of breeze. Ningate does not flicker. Sopama is sa upma. Similarly, smrita is said to be. Yogino, yogis. Yat chittasya, a mind that is under control. Yunjato is absorbed in. Yogamatmanaha, the thoughts of Paramatma. Sorry, I'm going to go back to my last example that I was giving about, leaving alcohol and all. So I just wanted to tell you, like, it is not when I said that it is not a moral conversation around alcohol, no alcohol and all, no. I'm just talking about like in reality, why do I feel like it is? Because since I have become like the mindfulness in my life is increasing, right? And with that mindfulness, the impact of things around me, I'm becoming a lot more very acutely aware of. Now I've reached a stage where I can drink one alcohol, one cocktail, and I can sense how it is impacting my body. I can sense how it is impacting my mind, the thoughts that come to me, the thoughts that become acceptable to me, the words that I use, the kind of words that become acceptable for me to use, the emotions, the next day morning, how my body feels the next morning. Even with one drink, I can sense that small amount of reduction in the efficiency of my body. Even the next morning, like how quickly I wake up, how I am with my child when he wakes up early in the morning and I've had very few hours of sleep. So I can sense like how, and I've had several nights of very low sleep, like 3 hours, 4 hours, but the effectiveness next day, on a day when I have had zero drinks and versus the day when I have had even one drink, I've become extremely aware of those small changes. These were things that I was not aware of when I was a young kid. Like, we thought, oh my gosh, like we can drink and it has no effect on us, and our body processes and all of that. But I guess it is not about what your body is able to process or not process, and it's not just about age. It's about mindfulness of whether you're aware of the impact it creates on us or whether we are oblivious. So I think I've become a lot more, and so it's the gyan, right? The knowledge that comes from mindfulness. That knowledge is what makes it easy for us to let go. That knowledge creates the meaning, and then we're like, oh, now I know. So it's a very scientific process. Through that science, through that knowledge, it makes it easy for us to make right decisions for our body, mind, health, and soul. Yeah. So all of this is very, very, like, we say mano par jano, have faith, and then you will know. It's because ultimately it's a very scientific journey. You have faith that this knowledge is true, and hence try and put it into practice in your life, and then you will learn from your own life's experiences, and you will make choices in your life which are true for yourself. You will experience it in your own life and not learn from someone else. Like, you will see, okay, now I can see it, hence it is true. Like, there is no way out of it. Once you become aware, there is no way out of it. You will naturally treat that path that seems right and better for you. Yeah. Sorry, we'll read now.
The form of the mind of a yogi, which is under complete control and which is in communion with the self, is comparable to the flame of a lamp which does not flicker, being kept in a place free of even a whiff of breeze. The form of a yogi's mind. Comparing the yogi's mind to the flame of a lamp placed in a breezeless spot, this shloka pictures it like the flame which does not flicker. Thus, the yogi's mind does not like to move away from the thoughts of the self, even for a fraction of a second. A departure for even that span of time appears to be suffocating. The mind of the yogi remains absorbed in meditation uninterruptedly in the same manner in which oil flows from one vessel to another without any break.
So this is what I was saying, that when we get to a space where we are in dhyan yoga, right? At that time, the reward is that nothing is going to provoke you. This is that example that shows us that nothing will provoke you. So it's like a lamp which is kept in a place where there's no breeze, there's no external influence. Or even if there is an external influence, because it is protected by whatever is protecting it from breeze, so it does not flicker at all. It does not move. So the mind of a yogi is now protected by a certain stillness. And where does that, what is that protection from? The protection is from our effort. That protection comes from our ability to the knowledge that we develop. That knowledge protects us from any external influence that will try and waver us. When people say it doesn't matter, one for the road, it doesn't matter, all of those conversations that happen outside of us which wave us, and we say, you know what, no, maybe, you know, I should, or whatever, all those conversations will die away, because we will see what is real and what is not real, what is important and what is really not important. So our ability to take the right decisions with based on principles rather than being flickered by worldly values which are constantly changing will go away. This is the type of mind, a stable mind, that we will end up with as we evolve and we become stronger in our practice of meditation. Okay. Next one. Who wants to go?
In the next three shlokas, the Lord describes the attainment of a yogi's mind.
Yatro paramate chittam
Yatro paramate chittam
niruddham yoga sevaya
niruddham yoga sevaya
yatra chaivatmanatmanam
yatra chaivatmanatmanam
pasyanatmani tushyati.
Pasyanatmani tushyati.
Yatra is when, paramate comes to rest, chittam mind, niruddham detained or curbed, yoga sevaya practice of yoga, yatra when, chaivatmanatmanam is cha is and, through, it's basically the self, the capital S self, which is through the subtle intellect and mind. The meaning of this self that is being referred to is the subtle intellect and mind. And the second Atmanam is small s self. Pashyan is sees or perceives. Atmani is in the self. Tushyati is contended. So there are like three different times when the Atman is been referred to. In one case, it is the smallest self, the individualized self. The other one is the biggest self, the Paramatma. That is the difference.
When the mind is faltering, curved by the practice of yoga, comes to quiet rest, and when the self is perceived by the self, the yogi is totally self-contented. The attainment of a yogi's mind. Ordinarily, the mind of a person keeps on fluttering constantly. Actually, the mind is not restless by nature, but it is certainly movable. Living in the world, a man keeps his mind stirred over the objects of his desires, and so gradually the mind becomes restless. Take a bicycle, for instance. It is certainly movable, but without pedaling, it keeps standing at a place. If one mounts and pedals, it would move in one direction or the other. It is therefore not correct to say that the cycle is restless by nature. Similarly, the mind is movable and it can be turned in any desired direction. But because of the absence of any definite and correct orientation of the intellect, It keeps on stirring haphazardly and then it is blamed for being restless by nature. When even such a mind is brought under control by a firm determination of the intellect, it is said to be curbed by the practice of yoga. The intellect, equipped with a firm determination, gradually starts getting bathed in the illumination of the self, and the mind also starts reveling in the bliss of meditation of the self. Even the restlessness of the mind is a boon in disguise. It is movable and therefore restless. There is always a possibility of its being diverted towards meditation of the self. Had it been immovable or devoid of dynamic force, it would have remained stationary wherever it was placed earlier. Thus, in essence, it would have stymied any positive orientation of the intellect.
We talked about this, it's quite self-explanatory, right? So important to know that the mind is movable but not restless. Let's use it in a positive manner. It is movable, hence let's try to now change its orientation to immovable, timeless values and move it away from the worldly values that are constantly changing and fluctuating. Okay, that's how we will get ourselves to be kutastha, one that is immovable. Let's move. Yeah.
For this, the intellect would have to be turned from the gross objects of the world towards the subtle entities with a firm determination. What happens then is described in the next shloka.
Sukham atyantikam yattat.
Sukham atmatya nitam kam.
Atya, sukham atyantikam.
Sukham atyantikam.
Yeah, yatat. Then
Yata
buddhigrahyam matindriyam.
buddhi graham matindriyam.
Vetti yatra na chaivayam.
Veti yatra na chaivayam.
Sthitaschalati tattvataha.
Stitaschalati tatvataha.
Sukham is bliss. Atyantikam, one that does not get over, infinite. Yatat, who. Buddhi grahyam atindriyam is that which can be comprehended only by pure intellect. So buddhi, intellect, grahyam can be grasped, can be eaten, or can be taken in. Atindriyam is pure, which can only be done by something that is very sukshma, small, very subtle. Veti, experiences. Yatra, inner state. No is does not. Chaivayam, and that yogi. Stitaschalati is being established. Chalati tattvataha does not move, does not go away from tattvataha, that reality.
When he, the yogi, experiences that infinite bliss, which can be comprehended only by the pure intellect and which transcends the senses, and being established therein, he does not swerve from reality. The transcendental experience. Constantly perceiving the subtle entities with the firm determination, the intellect gets lighted up with that infinite bliss, which is far beyond the perception of the senses. At that stage, the intellect cannot tolerate being turned away from the contemplation of the Lord even for a moment.
Yeah. So, this is a shloka that is talking about a very transcendental experience. To break it down at a slightly more gross level, and going back to the example I used earlier, now that I am deeply aware of the impact that alcohol creates on my effectiveness, it's an awareness that just doesn't go away. Even when I choose to have a drink, I know the impact it will create on me tomorrow, which reduces my craving for the next one after this. I'm like, okay, whatever happiness, whatever value, that marginal delta value I need to create out of this drink in this situation, now I can create that out of one drink rather than 4 drinks, and thus reduce the impact that I need to experience, the negative impact I need to create tomorrow that I know will absolutely happen. And so that compromise, like, oh, I don't need to go all the way to 4 to create the same value here. So, the pros and cons, you start to judge and then start to make a more nuanced decision. It doesn't have to be 0 or 100. You can have a more nuanced decision to get to a moderation, right? And this is something that you just cannot, I remember me and Abhinav used to sometimes talk about the fact that, we've had like one great party at night, and then next Sunday we are like all lying around, not really being effective. And then we would say, you know what, like when we were kids, then it was so different in college. I used to be like, there were these 5-6 days we would barely sleep, and we could just be constantly working, constantly this, constantly that. You should be like, you know what, we're growing old, dude. Like, the effect, the way we were in our late teens, early 20s, so different, so much energy. And my first experience of this was, when I conceived Vedant, I completely went off alcohol, like completely zero, right? And then I was off alcohol for almost 2.5-3 years, like zero alcohol during the time I was feeding him. And I realized, boss, after that we had all those parties, everybody would drink silly, as we always do, except me. And nobody forced me because, I have the legitimate reason. And I realized that next day morning, Abhinav used to be exactly the way I used to experience myself, and we used to say we are growing old. But because I didn't drink, the energy levels I had and the ability, like I will still be awake with him like till 3 a.m. And I wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock with only 3 hours of sleep, and I'm attending to Vedant, and I'm doing everything that's required. And I do not experience an iota of tiredness or exhaustion or like the need to sleep. And I started to realize, boss, I'm feeling the way I used to when I was in college. And that's when that knowledge started to seep in. You know what, like we aren't growing old as much as we are misusing our ecosystem. We are misusing our bodies so much and then blaming it on age. So, that's when that whole knowledge started to develop in me. And now I'm a lot more aware of what I eat, what I drink, and how it impacts the body. And so I'm changing the food and, the times I eat, what I consume, because now I'm beginning to use that knowledge to be that much more effective. And so now take that to another level already. Like, if this is at the gross level, learning these principles and applying it, and that mindfulness gross level is making me so much more effective, then take this to a transcendental level. Once we are able to experience that bliss is something we can't even imagine. And that's that's the promise, that once you get there, then obviously you will never come back down again. That's how the yogis are able to detach themselves so easily from the cravings and desires and longings that we find difficult to get out of, or find like, oh, this is important. I don't know why you wouldn't consider it important, right? So we'll develop a new level of knowledge altogether, operate at a completely different octave level. Let's go to the next one. Naina? Okay, go ahead.
Lord now explains the result of such a practice.
Yam labdva cha param labham.
Yam labdva cha param labham.
Manyate nadhikam tatah.
Manyate na adhikam tatah.
Yasministhato na dukkhen.
Yasminasthato na dukkhen.
Gurunapi vichalayate.
Gurunapi vichalayate.
Yam is that, labdva, gain, chaparam, any other, labham, gain, manyate, consider, मानते हैं, consider, nadhikam, not greater, tatah, than that. Yasmin sthito, yasmin is wherein, sthito, established, na is not, dukkhen is suffering, gurunapi is the greatest. Guru means big, right? So gurunapi is the greatest. Vichalyate, shaken.
And when, having attained that, he does not count any other gain to be superior to that, and wherein established, he is not shaken even by the greatest affliction. The firmness of the experience. The intellect lighted up by the experience of that transcendental bliss is then established firmly in the conviction that it has attained a million times more than what could be the biggest worldly attainment. Sometimes in this world, some afflictions of great magnitude make one feel the heavens had fallen. But to the person whose intellect is lighted with the transcendental bliss, even an affliction of that magnitude appears to be hardly like the fall of a leaf. Let alone being shaken by it, he feels as if nothing had happened.
Yeah. So in our Gita Parivar, there are actually so many live examples of people experiencing really big events in their life, and we're blown away by their responses to those events and how powerfully we have seen people deal with the actual events in their life. Like there is no way but to be completely blown away and uh, be completely like something to learn from. And this comes from a space of that calmness where you are tied to these principles, right? Let me give you an example, and there are tons of examples of all types. There are people who have lost their parents, and how they have dealt with that situation very powerfully. There are people who have lost jobs in the most in most bizarre circumstances, and how they have turned that extremely volatile and scary situation into something quite amazing, just because they were calm in that situation rather than panicking, as most of us would otherwise do. There are people who have experienced afflictions of the body, uh, that would have been devastating to a lot of us in general, but we have seen responses that are so divine that it is unbelievable that's coming from a person who's that afflicted. So these are some of the examples that live examples we've seen all around us, and we've seen how people have dealt with them so powerfully. So as an example, I can share our class facilitator. This is very close to us. That's why I'm sharing this example. Kumar's son, he wasn't even a teenager when the family discovered that he has a very rare type of aggressive disease in his brain that has the potential of basically vegetating him at a certain time as it progresses. Okay, so it affects the brain, and when they discovered it and they found the impact, it's a very, very rare disease. So people in Singapore, the doctors in Singapore, have not even seen a single case of this. They were more like learning from theory, like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, we read about this, blah blah. And when they did the MRI scan of his brain, the whole thing was like lit up like it was Diwali on his head. I mean, for a parent to know something like this has occurred for your child, who's not even a teenager, 10, 11 years old was what he was at that time, is so devastating. Like, we couldn't believe it when we heard it, right? The family found out about it, and they went to the doctor. And I remember there was the first class that happened after they had discovered it. Meghna took the child to the doctor, and Kumar actually took our class in a completely normal fashion, like as if nothing has happened. I have no idea how he kept his calm in that moment of crisis and went through the class, being fully present to us. We found out about it only after about a month that they are going through this, when we went to their house for a class. And that's when Meghna and everyone explained to us, and we were like completely taken aback of what's going on with their life, and how they were like doing whatever they can. They were going to all the doctors, India, US, Singapore, whatever needs to be done, they were there. and the child needs to go to school if he needs to go to school because he's capable of going. The child is going to the school, like, and they dealt with it for years. They're still dealing with it, but those first 1.5 years was super stressful. At no point of time did we hear them complain. Did they say, why us, why our child, why do we have to go through this? They would just say, okay, it is what it is, and they were just dealing with it in the best possible manner, doing everything they needed to in terms of their office. Like, Kumar had in between a long trip he had to do for his office, and his child and his family was telling him no, and he didn't want to go. And they were like, no, you have to go because this is what your duty is right now. You have to do it and we will manage. Like, that level of support from the family and from the child himself, it was incredible. And this kid has started a blog after going through that entire phase. I mean, he had to take steroids for the longest time, and that caused massive changes in his body. Like, he was a thin child and he became bloated, like completely bloated. His face was bloated, his body was bloated. Going to school in that state, dealing with the bullying of the children around him. He couldn't run. He was a very athletic child. He couldn't run without, like, it was very, very, very difficult phase that they went through. But the unbelievable responses of how the world was treating or what was happening outside of them, unbelievable. And the faith with which they operated. And this child has now started a blog in the midst of him going through this experience to say that I want to do everything to motivate others who are dealing with the similar situation as mine, since it's such a rare thing that has happened. I want to put myself out there and show people what can be done and how to deal with it in a more positive manner. Like, such a calm and happy child. Like, he has gone through, there is some medical procedure wherein they insert something in the space of your spine to take out some fluids for testing. It is like, I can't even tell you how unbelievably painful that procedure is, and you're not given any anesthetic for that experience. And this child has had to go through that like 3 or 4 times. Like, his parents will bawl out when that happened. This child never, like, it's unbelievable. Like, I can't control myself when I talk about it and not get emotional about how powerfully they dealt with the situation. That's how inspiring they are, of how they are applying Gita principles in their life. Like, everyone, not just Kumar, but like even at that child level, how powerful he was. And he's the one consoling everyone else in that situation, that don't worry, they will just, oh yeah, it's spine tapping, that's what they call it. Like, don't worry about it, I can deal with it. And he's just doing nam jap in that moment, and blessings, sending blessings to the doctors and other medical practitioners working with him. Like, it's unbelievable, right? That in that, we can talk about it when we are, calm and sitting in our drawing rooms, but being able to apply those principles in that moment of distress is what is unbelievable. And that's why, and the only way this happens is when we practice it in our peacetime, right? So we practice, and we practice in peacetime for the wartime. That is why Swadhyay, that is why Nam Jap, that is why everyday practice, reading, learning, all of this is to prepare us for that wartime. And that wartime will come, make no mistake, right? Every one of us will have multiple wars to fight in our life in different forms. And we will get overwhelmed unless we have tied ourselves already to a space where we become kutastha, where things outside become immovable. We become immovable to VVGP, making us effective and efficient when the war comes. So in army, my dad's in army, my brother's in army, right? They constantly go on exercises. In peace field also, every few months, there's an exercise happening. Why? Because that's how they prepare for the wartime. And there is a saying that I have seen all over when we were growing up in the Kant area, which says that the more sweat you put on the training field, the less blood will flow on the war field. And that's the mentality with which army prepares itself. That's the mentality we need to prepare ourselves as well. As much effort we put in when conditions are right, when we do not have the pressures of the war, when life is going on as usual, the more time, the more effort we put into our practice, and not just reading, right? It is Shravan, which we are listening into, Manan, contemplating on all these principles and how they apply to our daily life is extremely important. Manan is very important. You have to contemplate what I learned today and where am I not applying it, or where am I effectively applying it in my daily life, and how can I get better. Manan. And Nidhi Dhyasan. Nidhi Dhyasan is when we start to implement it in our daily life. So important. I cannot stress it. There's no point in reading if you are not doing Manan and Nidhi Dhyasan after that. Right? When we get to that Nidhi Dhyasan on a daily basis, it's Shravan, Manan, Nidhi Dhyasan, Shravan, Manan, Nidhi Dhyasan, every single day. So when we read about meditation more, when we learn more about techniques of meditation at a later stage, we will learn about a style of meditation called contemplative meditation. One form of contemplative meditation is just this: being aware of what you're doing your entire day. It's not about sitting in one place. All meditation is not about sitting in one place. So this form of meditation is only about being aware of what we are thinking, feeling, doing, being mindful at every single second of the day. And that's kind of like easy for us to start to implement in our daily life, right? And this is where Nidhi Dhyasan comes into play. This is what is Nidhi Dhyasan, right? We'll close. 12 o'clock already. Sorry, we'll start the closing shlokas. Anyone wants to take up Sarvesha?
I will take up Tuhina. I didn't put my name.
Yeah.
Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Next one, it was Anita, but she's not here, so anyone can take it up.
I'll take it. Can you please anyone repeat? Sorry.
You want me to, you'll repeat after me?
Yeah, thank you.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah.
Sarve Santu Niramayaha.
Sarve Santu Niramayaha.
Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu.
Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu.
Ma Kaschid Dukh Bhag Bhave.
Ma Kaschittu Bhakave.
Very nice. The next one.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Anyone else wants to take Astoma?
I can do it. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrutyum Ma Amrutam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Very nice. Who wants to do the last one? I'm not sure if Rituj is here. Anyone wants to volunteer?
I will go, but you have to first read me and then I will follow you.
Sure. Om Purnamada
Om Purnamada
Purnamidam
Purnamidam
Purnat
Purnat
Purnamudachyate
Purnamudachyate
Purnasya
Purnasya
Purnamadaya
Purnamadaya
Purnamevavashishyate.
Purnaveva Vashishyate.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Shanti. Thank you, Tuhina. Thank you.
You'll do the 3 ending Oms, please.
Om Om. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you, Visalakshi.